Casting from the basement of La Penta, it's WICR.
Youth has certainly been something that has defined this NFL season. I think certainly Dak Prescott and Carson Wentz have been the two who've defined that very word. Welcome back to the Sports Vault, everyone. Jersey Joe Archino back here. And Carson Wentz, obviously, to me, what he's done at the start of his young NFL career is just sensational. The poise that he has shown at such a young age, it's not something that you find very easily right away. And look, he kind of had a nice little transition into the NFL against the Browns at home. Then he had the Bears on Monday Night Football, and it's a little bit more of a challenge, but even the Bears, not the greatest thing to throw at somebody for a real tough one. And then I think we're all totally convinced after this past Sunday against the Steelers at home. The Steelers, a tremendous start to their season as well. But Carson Wentz, with his mobility, with his decision-making, with his poise at the line, he just shows you, and it's very easy to see how much talent that this young kid has. And I think when we look at him and everything that he could possibly do moving forward, just the sky is the limit for him. But a guy who has also done a lot in under very difficult circumstances is Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott certainly didn't expect to be starting this season as the starter for the Cowboys, but sometimes circumstances happen and he was thrown into it and he has made the most of it so far. I think when you look at Dak's stats, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, 767 yards, and a 66.7 completion percentage, those are good numbers. I mean, they really are. He has not turned the ball over. Maybe hasn't been as explosive as Carson Wentz has been, but Dak Prescott is using the tools that he has in the running game, and he's not really taking a lot of chances down the field, but he knows his limitations, and he's playing to them. And sometimes, as a young quarterback, some guys don't get that, but Dak Prescott clearly has been the guy who has understood that. So we kind of have an interesting dynamic here. Which young quarterback has the brighter future? Which one is the better one right now? And obviously there's a lot of Cowboys fans out there who are very pleased with the way Dak has played so far this season. I think you have to be under all the circumstances. But to me, Dak Prescott is one of those guys where, again, I just kind of spoke to the limitations. I don't know if those limitations ever could substantially change. With Carson Wentz, on the other hand, though, Carson Wentz just, from day one, has the total package on the table. He's only going to expand those things, but the fact that he's able to come into the NFL now and make any throw, with his mobility, he could do just about anything as well. I mean, Carson Wentz, to me, really looks like that guy who could be the definitive face of the NFL for the next 10 to 15 years. I just think he has all those things. I mean, in the biggest hurdle for a rookie quarterback in the NFL these days is understanding the game from a language standpoint, reading NFL defenses, understanding NFL concepts, and just really owning the presence at the line. I mean, Peyton Manning's retired now, so we're kind of still have him sort of fresh in our mind, but Peyton Manning, the physical tools are never what defined Peyton Manning. What defined Peyton Manning was at the line, you're never going to beat him. He was going to beat you every single time at the line of scrimmage with his poise, his understanding of the game, his stamina. And I think Carson Wentz at a young age is showing just this amazing ability to pick these things up right away. I mean, the Steelers' defense is kind of revamped to a degree, but they're still going to throw a lot of challenges at you, and the fact that he's recognizing these things this early is such a good indicator of his football IQ level. Even a guy like Andrew Luck, who I love, he turns the ball over way too much. I mean, the Colts are put in such bad situations all the time. They always start games off in bad spots because of the turnovers, but Carson Wentz already hasn't turned the ball over. 5 touchdowns for him, 0 interceptions, 769 yards, and a 64.7 completion percentage. All of those numbers really speak to how good he has been. And to me, with Dak, we'll go back to Dak for a minute. I mean, look, I'm a more avid college football fan than I am of the NFL. But never at any point was I watching Mississippi State and thinking that Dak Prescott was going to be the next great NFL quarterback. Now, like Ben Roethlisberger, when you watched him in college, you thought, okay, Dak has got some size. If Dak could really become a consistent passer, Dak physically could do a lot of great things. But Mississippi State's obviously not known for their prolific offense and their prolific throwing the ball down the field, so I don't think any of us really ever took Dak Prescott as a serious NFL candidate. But right now, Dak Prescott is doing very well for himself. But to me, there is limitations there, and I think moving forward, when you try to evaluate a guy's NFL future, I just think that those limitations will always be there for Dak Prescott. With a big guy like that, there's not a lot of guys. Tim Tebow's kind of one of those perfect examples where physically Tebow could be a godsend at the quarterback position, but he just wasn't a good enough passer. I mean, we know that. But Dak Prescott's clearly not Tim Tebow level with his throwing game, and there's no reason he can't get better, but again, you go back to the limitations. I just don't know if he ever could become that prolific passer at the NFL level. He's done well for himself now, keeping it in front of him, but he's got to be able to expand his game down the field more. And he is very young, and I might be being very harsh on Dak Prescott right now, but I still think if you're trying to make the debate between the two of them, Carson Wentz has the ability to change the face of the league. And Dak Prescott could have a very nice NFL future ahead of him. But Carson Wentz, to me, every time I see him take a snap, I'm just kind of enamored. I think he really could be a special quarterback. And week one, I was amazed watching just how much command and poise he had. Week two, I watched him grow from that and not take as many. I mean, week one, remember, he was challenging people every single time. He didn't care. He was running. And I think a lot of people were saying, well, playing with that reckless abandon doesn't really work that well all the time. But his mobility, of course, is something that has gotten other quarterbacks in trouble. But he's the smart enough guy where, I mean, I think you look at a guy like RG3, tremendous rookie season for him, but RG3 never understood how not to use his athleticism. He always had to use that to make a play. And Carson Wentz, on the other hand, he doesn't need his athleticism to survive. There's a big difference in the NFL between quarterbacks who need their athleticism to survive and those who don't. Andrew Luck has the athleticism, but he doesn't need it to survive. Russell Wilson has it, but he doesn't need it to survive. And I think Carson Wentz is another example of that. RG3 needed his athleticism to survive, and he couldn't without it. Michael Vick, same thing. He needed it to survive. He couldn't do it without it. There's a very big difference in the NFL between those kind of guys, and that's one of the biggest reasons certain players can't make that transition. Even Colin Kaepernick, who seemed like he was going to be that next great guy until he started doing stupid things like not respecting the flag, he was one of those guys, again, can't win, can't survive without his athleticism. He just didn't understand NFL concepts enough. San Francisco had to continually downplay and just downgrade their offense. Instead of making it more complex, they had to make it more simplified. And that's never a sign of progression. That's never a sign of a good quarterback. Carson Wentz, to me, is only going to be able to add more and more things to his element. And even you look at a guy like Cam Newton. Cam Newton did struggle coming into the NFL, understanding NFL concepts, verbiage, schemes. He admitted to it. I mean, he was flat out asked by a reporter, what's the thing you're struggling with the most transitioning into the league? And he said, it's NFL concepts, it's NFL verbiage, it's understanding how to break down a defense. But Wentz has showing that at almost a flawless pace so far, and I just look at him. I really do think this kid has all these tools to be special. Now, here's the interesting thing. Obviously, now the Eagles kind of have that early bye week in their schedule, which I think is good for him. He's gone 3-0. He has not turned the football over. Now he can kind of look at those 3 games and just pick them apart. What is he like that he's seen? What are the things he's still struggling with? You know, sometimes you don't get the bye at the perfect point in your season. But to me, I mean, I think a lot of teams would much rather have it a little bit later. But I think this is the perfect time for Carson Wentz to have that bye week. He's been 3 games in, which for a rookie is a lot of games. He's played a lot of NFL minutes, and he's done a lot of good things. But I think you look at it on the other hand, and this is something where it's an opportunity to heal your body. It's an opportunity to rest your mind a little bit and to just take a little bit of a breather and look at all the great things you've done. And now it's time to build off of that. But between Dak Prescott and between Carson Wentz, to me, there's really no debate that Carson Wentz has the higher NFL future. But I wouldn't give up on Dak Prescott. Again, I think he does have limitations, but that doesn't mean he can't shed those limitations because of what he's done so far. But that is going to do it for this segment. Jersey, Joe Archino, back here with the Sports Vault. You can follow me on Twitter at Joe Archino and on Instagram, Jersey_Joe_Archino. And I'll catch everybody in the next episode.